Okay, you're on the cloud. And um, let me give you a little backstory about why I chose the topic that I chose for today. And we kind of touched on it a week or so ago, but I have never seen in a brokerage of ours so many clients, buyer clients, go into contract, do inspections, and then cancel, right? And for a couple of you, you've got clients that have done that several times, just the one client, right? And so, when it first starts happening, you're like, well, that's the way it goes. You'll be all right. Keep going. When it continues to happen and it happens more regular, you start to wonder, as me, I start to wonder, all right, what the hell's going on here? Like, everything that we're putting into contract, we can't close. It gets canceled. And although sometimes that's necessary, you got to understand that if you have a client, every time you do that, you're um, you're lessening the chance that you're actually going to sell them a house, right? Because what can happen? They can get frustrated with the process. They can start to think it's you, and maybe they need a different agent in order to be successful. All kinds of stuff can happen. So I start to think, all right, what the hell is going on here? And then you should know me well enough to know by now that my default always is, well, the first thing I want to know is I want to know if it's us or if it's happening lots of places, right? I got to get that litmus test out of the way. Like, are we blowing it or is this kind of a theme? So I start making phone calls, right? Start sending text messages. I find people that I know that I trust, that we have a good relationship, that do a lot of transactions or are in brokerages that do a lot of transactions, and I start to say, "Hey, you see any of this?" And the answer was not just yes, but HE blank blank yes. Okay. So then, if you know me, what I do is I say, "Well, I wonder why." All right. And I start digging and I start researching and I get on the internet uh, and I start trying to figure out why is this happening? What are the factors that are kind of going into this? And I actually got some really, really good data. Some factual, some theoretical, but I think that it's both valuable. And um, I don't want to spoiler alert this, but what I am going to do, or what I'm going to lean into as we get into this a little bit, is I'm going to lean into Brendan a little bit about this because this is a buyer type conversation, right? Although everything that we discuss with buyers has a direct correlation to what you should do to rep a seller at a higher level, okay? But the one person in our organization where that has these transactions that go wonky, and I think for sure that one's going to cancel. Okay. And it never does, is Brendan's. All right. So every time he gets a transaction that starts to go squirrely, and what you guys need to know is when one of his transactions goes squirrely, it goes squirrely big time, right? Like there's never this, oh, we're kind of working through a little problem here, a little problem there. It's like it's an explosion of grossness, right? And I mean, I don't mind saying this to him because I say it right to his face. I tell him straight up, stop putting time into it. This thing's dead. You're going to cancel. And he doesn't listen to me, obviously. And it doesn't. All right. And somehow, some way it closes. And I'm like, wow, okay, cool. All right. So we're going to lean into him a little bit. But here's what I came up with. And I don't want to get too far into how markets have changed or whatever, but just to kind of set the tone, we're going to compare today to 2021. All right, because those are the two extremes that we're dealing with. Okay. In 2021, buyers bought houses, right? That's what they were buying. If you ask them, and they're not going to be able to articulate this, but if you dug into it, you'd say, "What are you buying?" They'd say, "I'm buying a house." Okay. In 2026, what they're buying is certainty. All right. They're trying to buy certainty. And they're trying to buy certainty in a world that is very uncertain right now, everywhere that you look, right? They're getting bombarded. Okay. So I want you to think about this. And let's see who's here. Yeah, I mean, some people in here that have struggled and some people that haven't. But um, if you think about how many of you that have had a transaction cancel in the last 12 months, let's go a year. And they almost all canceled because ours almost all canceled because of inspections. It wasn't loan. All right. That's the other big one is people are getting all the way through inspections and the buyer has to cancel the transaction because of something related to the loan. None of ours were loan. They were all inspections. And then I want you to think about, okay, if it was all canceled for inspection findings, for lack of a better term, how many of those inspection findings that they canceled for were actually catastrophic? Think about it for a minute. And I know what most of them are, right? Because I talk to you guys. Before it cancels, it always ends up at me. Okay. The answer is very few. Very few of them were catastrophic. Now, let me give you some examples of catastrophe, just for point of reference. Okay. You find a house full of toxic mold. All right. Please cancel that transaction. Just go. Run as fast as you can. All right. You find a house that was built wholly unpermitted. Okay. Please run. All right. Get out of there. Brendan's going, no, I can close that. He just said it in the chat to chat. No, I agree. I can close that. Okay. Brendan, too. Run. Run away from the unpermitted house. All right. You find a house that's been tagged as contaminated with methamphetamine. Please run. Okay, cancel for that. Those items are catastrophic, right? It doesn't really matter what you do or what your client does, that cloud will never go away. Okay, it's a bad investment. It's a bad idea for them. It's a good way for us to end up in court, even if we disclose the hell around it and sign off on contingencies on it. It's a good way for us into court. That's catastrophe. Okay, we haven't had any of those. None. I take that back. One. There was one. She's not here. She's not in the meeting. She had one. They found mold. I said, get the hell out. Right? So, none. So why are they leaving? Okay. Uh, One person I talked to said, well, buyers these days are just irrational. That was his answer. They're completely irrational. Right? I don't agree with that. I mean, sometimes you'll run into one, you'll run into an irrational party. But generally speaking, I don't agree with that. I think they're highly cautious, okay, for a number of reasons, but they're very cautious. What are they cautious about? Or not what are they cautious about? What is making them cautious? What are the things that are adding to this vibe of cautiousness? They're worried about interest rates, right? They're all stressed out about it. Is now the right time? Even if it seems like the right time, we've talked in the past, they're wondering, is it the right time, right? In our areas, most of our areas, they're worried about insurance, right? Do I really want to be in a situation where I pay $8,000 in insurance every year forever? Okay. They're worried about inflation. If you're a normal human being, you cannot walk through this earth right now and not every once in a while wonder about inflation. We're bombarded by it. And inflation in the sense that if I buy this house, which is going to probably cost me more than wherever I'm living right now, am I going to be able to afford it because the cost of everything else is going up, right? It cost me $200 to fill my truck the other day, right? They're worried about the fact that they're paying more that I just touched on, they're paying more than they did for their rental, or they're paying more than they did for their smaller house, right? Their mortgage is going to go up. They're worried about economic uncertainties as a whole, right? Unless you're an oligarch, you're probably not making a lot of money right now, generally speaking. Okay. They're worried about all the other crap that floats around in the news headlines. Lack of stability in government, lack of stability in culture, lack of stability in municipalities, right? They're worried about that stuff. They're worried about whether or not they're going to have a job because every other news report you watch starts to talk about the possibility of a recession and higher unemployment, right? And that's not a political thing where somebody's going, yeah, well, you watched the wrong news or you watched the right thing. I'm talking about financial reporting, okay? They're worried they're settling. You guys notice that lately? They're always worried that they're settling, which is kind of a new dynamic for us. It's like they're constantly feeling like they're being pressured into settling in some way, shape, or form. And to complicate all of it, they don't have the same urgency they once did. If we're going to compare it to the extreme in 2021, if you don't remember how that was, I will remind you real quick. If you didn't go and try and buy it right now when it came out, whatever it was, you weren't going to buy it. Okay? You had to act fast. They don't have to do that anymore. You put all that together along with a search, a home search and a showing search and a showing schedule that probably lasts 5 times longer than it did in 21 at a minimum. And by the time they write the offer, they're exhausted. They're wiped out. They're emotionally tapped out. They're already to that point of like, I don't even know if I really want to do this anymore. Okay? They're fried. And then what do? We send some inspectors through the house. And I'm gonna sidebar for just a minute. I think in 2020 and 2021 and 2022, we agents trained the inspectors whether or not they knew we were training them to find everything because we needed them to. Do you remember why? Because we had 5, 6, 10 other offers on the house. We had to go 40, 50,000, 100,000, 120,000. The highest I ever wrote was 175,000 over list price. And then we had to try and get some of that back after we did our inspection. So we told our inspectors, Eddie, find everything. We trained them. And so they still do. So then they come back with this big long list of inspections. The buyer is already at the end of the rope. They're ready to fry out anyways. We give them all this stuff and they go, "Oh God, I don't want to do it." Right? It's too much. I'm over it. I went through all that pain and all that stress and all that process to finally find the house that I wanted, and I get all the stuff back, and pardon my French, and I know that this isn't, I'm oversimplifying. I get all this stuff back, and I find out it's a piece of crap. That's what they think. Whose responsibility is it to manage that? It's us. It's us, right? And so, in order to manage that, we have to do what Brendan is the master of. And we have to do it way before we think we need to do it. And I think he probably does it early. He just doesn't realize he's doing it early. I think he probably does it at the showing. You have to set expectations for what's going to happen in this process, right? And we'll get a little bit more detailed about it. So the big disconnect here is, let's oversimplify it. The actual condition of a house, whatever it is, whatever house it is, and the expectation of the person buying it when they write the offer. There's a disconnect there. All right. I'll oversimplify it. They think that they're buying something brand new with zero issues, and what they're actually buying is 35 years old and it's got a laundry list of stuff that every 35-year-old house has. Okay. We have to bridge that gap. What makes them cancel? Is it the condition? Really? Or is it their expectation? It's their expectation, right? Let's break it down. Let's say a buyer spends $500,000 on a house. The inspector finds missing GFIs, the roof getting close to the end of its life, a couple of plumbing leaks, an older HVAC system, some deferred maintenance issues like we got some peeling paint or some faded paint, or we've got my favorite, the dual pane window that's got the fog in between the panes. We got a couple of those. Okay. And the buyer thinks nowadays, in 2021, you know what they said? Ah, no big deal. We'll take care of that. Right? You know what they say now? The house is broken. It's broken. It's got all these problems. You think, as an agent, you think, I mean, it's pretty good. It's a 30-year-old house. It's pretty good shape. It's all pretty minor stuff. Right? But that small window of time that's after the inspections and before you have to submit the request for repair or the contingency removal, that 2 to 5 day period of time is not the time to have that conversation. It's not the time to have that conversation. Let's complicate it a little bit more. Let's talk about different houses. Okay, because this is one that I think one of our agents is really struggling with. I'm not going to mention any names, but he's got an orange t-shirt on. Okay. There are realities in price ranges. Okay. There are realities in price ranges. The reality, to oversimplify it, is this. If a house costs $500,000 or less, what you'll find is that over and over and over again, you get similar inspection results. They'll be a little different, but they're all pretty similar. And I'm going to overly generalize. They all have larger than average Section 1 findings. Okay? All of them have older roofs. All of them have older heating and air systems. Generally speaking, they all have evidence of rodent activity. They just do. None of them have GFCI receptacles in the kitchen and the bathroom. They just don't. Okay? They're too old. All right? They all have older windows, older plumbing, older wiring. Okay? There's more wear and tear. There's generally more deferred maintenance. Okay? Let's go to the other end of the extreme. Most $1 million houses, although that's not that much anymore, most $1 million houses also have similar inspection findings. They have much smaller pest report findings. They almost all have GFIs everywhere you go, right? These systems and the main components in the house are generally newer and or in better condition. There is not as much deferred maintenance present on the house. And there's a big reason for that. The income bracket is different. Okay. And when something that requires maintenance on a $1.5 million house comes up, that homeowner hires somebody to do it. And on the lower priced house, that homeowner says, well, I'll fix it someday. Okay. That's the difference. We have to somehow set that tone at the showing. All right. We have to somehow set that expectation for how that's going to go at the showing. And it might go a little bit something like this. And I'm going to let Brendan dive in here in a minute. It might go a little something like this. It's a $500,000 house. It's a first-time home buyer or someone who is stepping up from maybe like a duplex to the first detached dwelling. All right. It's 35 years old. It's in a decent neighborhood. All right. And it's got all the stuff that we talked about. So when I'm showing it, I'm saying things like, I'm seeing a little bit of age on the roof. I'm seeing a little bit older electrical system. I'm seeing some older plumbing fixtures. I noticed that window's fogged, right? we're going to get details on all of that when we run our inspections so that we know exactly what we're dealing with. But I think we can anticipate there's going to be some findings. Okay. If the house is 1.5 million, all right, my conversation is going to change. It's going to sound something like this. This is in really good shape. This is in really good shape. I know we're going to have some findings when we run inspections because we always do. My guess is they're going to be minor. If there's anything large, we should be able to address that, right? A little bit different. Brendan, jump in here. Tell me, do you do any kind of this table setting, expectation setting while showing? Do you do it after the showing? How do you do it? What are some of your tricks? How do you deal with that?
It depends on area. If we're looking in an older area, I always let them know ahead of time that, hey, what a great area, but these are older homes. There's always going to be some kind of deferred maintenance or something wrong. I'd like to tell buyers all the time too that homes and cars always have something that needs to be fixed, no matter what. I also like to frame it as an opportunity, saying, "Hey, this is a great opportunity for us to get some money off of the house or get you some money back for the
Hmm.
property because it, may have a roof that has some wear." I think also too, it's good to have an inspector you can lean on. One of my home inspectors I love because even when he finds issues with the property, he'll say it has X, Y, and Z wrong with it. But hey, where are you going to get another house like this for this price and in this neighborhood? So it
Hmm.
helps having a support staff that can frame it in the right light. I think as well too. It really does. But yeah, definitely set expectations from the very beginning. Let people know that hey, as soon as you're ready to give up, something's gonna work out.
Good. Anybody else want to jump in here? Do they have anything similar or different as far as expectation setting or kind of setting the table so that when the inspections come back and there are findings that it lessens the shock, it lessens the blow? Okay. Let's then talk about this. When we have findings, and we always do, I think what we've got to work on is being able to differentiate those findings. Chad, your hand's up. Go.
Oh, sorry. No, my hand was up from the prior, but you moved on. No worries.
I'm sorry, buddy. Hey, you don't have to raise your hand. Just press unmute and say, "Hey, hang on," and then just jump in because I can't really see the hands unless I'm paying attention. It's all the way over here. Um,
Oh, gotcha. Well, I was just going to add to what he was saying too, that 100% agreement on what he's saying, and then I just add in it. I would say in the cases of first time buyers, especially that you set the precedent from the beginning. We're going to get you in a home, not your dream home, not the perfect home, not your final home, but we're going to get you into home ownership. Let's work on getting a good deal on that. Look how we could find some breaks, put some elbow grease into the home, sell
mhm.
it for a profit, then get your dream home.
Focusing on ownership rather than perfection. I love that because of the
Mm-hmm.
benefits of ownership. Nobody can truly argue, well, Alan can, but he's not here. No one can truly argue the benefits of ownership, right? It's just there are rare exceptions, but generally speaking, it is far better and far more beneficial than renting, leasing ever will be, and it's certainly better than living in your parents' basement. So,
Yeah. And
uh,
I tell them the story. My personal story is when I finally decided I passed up on two homes and I lost tens of thousands of dollars in equity. So when I finally decided to buy, I pulled the trigger on it and I made more money sleeping in my bed in that home for 4 years than I did working my butt off every day.
Absolutely true. Timing has something to do with that too, but absolutely true. No doubt about it, right? Uh, there's no
Yep.
question
Home
that
ownership.
the average American, the only way that, not the only way, the best way that we will ever generate wealth is through ownership. That's just a fact. Okay, that's not me. That's a fact. Thanks, buddy. So let's talk about putting inspection findings into categories. All right. The first category is what I call the non-negotiables, and that's the health and safety category, right? These are truly a big deal. Things like gas leaks, things like electrical hazards, things like major structural issues, things like not an aged roof, but an actual leaking roof, right? I don't think you can get away from those. And I don't think you should get away from those. I think that if you can't find a positive solution to those kinds of issues, you should cancel. You should cancel. That's the way I feel about it. The second category is functional issues. Where is my phone? Okay, no big deal. Functional issues. Things that are working, but maybe not working as well as they should. The thing that comes to my mind is a heating and air unit. You know, it's an aged heating and air unit. Is it working? Yeah. Is it working at peak performance? No. Is it repairable? Does it have a shelf life? Is that shelf life imminent? Is that HVA system, is that water heater good for another 5 or 6 years, or is it about to take a dump tomorrow? Right? Be able to differentiate between these two things. Because if somebody says, well, I mean, it says right there that the water heater is nearing the end of its service life because that's what they say. Okay. What does that mean? Does that mean, yeah, we got to get you a new water heater or a credit right now, or you're going to be in it for the first 30 days taking a shower and you're going to get cold water? Or does that mean you've got another 5 years left on the thing. You've got plenty of time to worry about saving up to replace the water heater, or, oh, by the way, I buy you a home warranty at closing. If the thing fails, you'll be able to have it replaced, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right. What is the status of those? Appliances are a lot like that too, right? The range oven, uh, a lot like that. Then we get into like deferred maintenance. My favorite one, uh, grout missing in shower, right? Uh, caulking needed at connection from sink splash to wall, right? Uh, uh, lavatory drips when is in off position. This is not a big deal, okay? And it reads like a big deal on a report, but it's not a big deal. And they need to understand that it's not a big deal. Not only is it not a big deal, but it's really typical. You're going to find those findings in every house we look at. Okay. If you cancel today and we go find another one next weekend and we spend the $500 again to do the inspection, they're going to find all that stuff again. Right? Deferred maintenance is not a big deal. It's generally a handyman issue, even a homeowner issue. It's something that they can take care of. And although it might look scary in the picture and it might sound scary the way they write it up, because that's the way they write it up, it's not a big deal. And you need to be able to articulate that. I'm not telling you to minimize things that are serious. Don't ever do that. But the things that aren't serious, they need to understand that's not serious. It's a common finding. If we run from this one and we run to the next one, you're going to be looking at the same report with different pictures. That's what you're going to get. And then number 4 is homeowner projects, right? Well, it says that the sink hardware in the kitchen is old, and I don't really like it anyways. Okay, that's not a cancelable event. That's something that you want to upgrade. It's working, it's functional. You don't like the way it looks. The inspector said it's older, but there's nothing wrong with it. And that's going to go on your I'm fixing up my house list. So should all 4 categories have the same emotional weight? No, but they do. That's the reality of it. If you don't attend to it, if you don't address it, if you don't work on putting things into buckets, they will treat the leaky bathroom faucet with the same level of seriousness as the leaking roof. That's the way I see it, right? And it all relates back to this feeling of being unsure from the beginning, given everything that we're dealing with. Again, I want you to think back to 2021, and I'm going to prove my point to you right now. I want you to think back to 2021. The single biggest, and then I want you to think all the way back, if you're old enough, I want you to think all the way back to 2006, 2005. I'm going to go 2005. The single biggest thing that fueled the real estate revolution, both of those times, wasn't what you might think it is. It was this attitude that it doesn't matter what I buy, it doesn't matter how much I pay for it, it's a winner and I'm going to make money. That's what did it. Now we're on the other side of the coin. All right. We talked all the way back. They're buying stability and they're buying security. What they're buying is a payment they can afford. They're buying a hedge on their future. They're buying security and living space. They're buying confidence and they're buying peace of mind. Inspection findings will chip away at every one of those things unless you address them in the beginning. You've got to provide perspective, right? Let me ask you this. What do you think the one inspection finding, the number one inspection finding there is? And I don't have an answer. Okay, I just want to know, based on your experience, what is the one inspection finding that scares people the most? What's the one that that blows people out of the water the most? The one that you've had the most cancellations over. Come on, give me some stuff.
Rodents every time.
Rodents. Michael says rodents. Okay.
Mine has been foundation.
Foundation. Shelby says mold and water damage. Yeah, Shelby, good. All right, good. Anybody else?
Yeah, I would agree with foundation, though I haven't run across it too much. But the roof, I would say, was a big one that I see fairly often when
Roof.
I have issues. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the
Roof.
roof freaks people out because they're worried that it's going to leak and the whole place is going to be destroyed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Noah's flood is coming.
Noah's flood. That's right. All right. So let's take those examples, right? We got rodents, we got roof, we got mold or water damage, and we got foundation. Which of those, and I'm not, I'm saying generally speaking, which of those should be deal killers?
Not rodents.
Not rodents. You're correct. Rodents is not one of them. Okay. Which of those should be deal killers?
None of them, if handled correctly.
You guys see what I mean? You guys see what I mean? Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna go. Foundation could be a deal killer. Could be a deal killer. All right. Really, really hard to deal with foundation problems. Really hard. And then for me personally, mold or water damage, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to push my client pretty hard to get out of there. And that's mostly because there's so much unknown tied to that I don't know what's going to happen to them five years down the road or how it's going to go. But the roof and the rodents, I'm going to negotiate around that, guys. I mean, I'm going to negotiate around that hard. Brendan, do you have something to say? Your mouth was about to open.
Water damage and foundation are definitely humongous issues. Now, I think that you have to give yourself the opportunity, though, to get the correct bids for to remedy those problems and put it in front of the seller and go, hey, look, this is what it's going to take for your property to be sellable. And if you don't give us the money, you have to go back on the market with these same disclosures. everybody's going to know that you have water damage, or you have mold, or you have a foundation issue. So I think that you owe it to yourself too, because you spent all the time. You might as well do the legwork, get the bid, put it in front of the seller, and see what you can do. And you got to work with the selling agent too. You go, hey, look, we're a team at this point. You want this closed too, right? All right, help me present this and help me get the money we need to remedy these problems.
Guys, is there any question why his transactions don't cancel? I mean, I will say this, he will put in the work, and it's sometimes it's a lot of work, okay? But he stays on track. He gets the appropriate information. And by the way, while you're doing all of that, Brendan, while you're getting the appropriate information, what you may or may not know, you probably do, but you're also really calming down the buyer, right? Because you're saying, yeah, I know it looks like a huge foundation issue on the report, but here's the fix. Like, we can fix this. You can fix this. Now, if this was fixed by this contractor, where are you then? Well, they're going to say, well, then I think it's great, right? That would be wonderful. So if you can get all that done, then you can probably get it to close. Absolutely. Um, the bottom line here, I think, is that fueling all of this, a home buyer has more choices, whether that's actual or perceived. They believe they have more choices. They believe they have more options, right? Every day they have access to more information. All right, so they're smarter, they're better educated about what is a problem and what is not. That's not always good information. They definitely have more anxiety for all the reasons that we mentioned, and they have less urgency. What that means for you is you've got to work harder at educating them and breaking things down for them, probably than you ever have before, right? So I'm going to use myself as an example. My talk track around inspections or my talk track around inspection objections probably isn't good enough anymore. Not for today's general typical buyer, right? I don't set the table. I'll be totally transparent. I don't set the table as well as Brendan does. I don't lay out expectations as well as Brendan does, right? My mode has always been more about waiting for an objection to come up and then overcoming it, right? I probably need to get better at doing what he does to avoid that conversation because my percentage of success on talk tracking my way around that objection because of all the reasons that we're talking about is probably going to be way down, right? It won't work anymore. We all have to do that. We're all probably going to have to get better at setting the table. We're going to have to do it earlier, and we're going to have to work harder at it than we ever have before. That's just the way that it is. So tell me this. After today, if there was one thing that you would change while showing a house that they liked, right? I'm not talking about the house they go in and they go, nah. I'm talking about the one that they go in and their eyes get big and they're starting to get excited and they stay there for a little bit longer than the other showings. Maybe they start talking about where the TV's going to go, that kind of vibe. If there's one thing that you would do differently after today, what would that one thing be? I'll go first to set the tone. Okay. When I start getting that vibe, that's when I'm going to start to notice things, right? But I'm going to temper it. I'm going to say, I love it too. And especially if and I'm going to mean it. I love it too. I think it's a winner, but I noticed that the furnace in the closet looked a little bit older. That's probably going to come up on the inspection and we'll get more detail about that. But I think we need to be ready for that finding, right? I think we need to be ready for that finding. All right, now you go. What's the one thing that you would do differently when you started getting that positive vibe at a showing? Don't make me call on you like a classroom.
I like to set it with just going, hey, look, there's something's going to come up. What? We don't know. And that's what we have our inspectors here for. But that also creates an opportunity for us because whatever comes up, that gives us the chance to get money for you. We can actually
Mhm.
get you money for repairs, or if we have to, we can try to get the repairs done before closing, which I don't like to do. But if that makes them feel more comfortable, you got to find that path to where they go, okay, I'm satisfied, right? But I let them know that something's going to come up, and that's why we're doing our inspections. And
Mhm.
it's a good thing. It's an opportunity to improve on the home, and it's an opportunity to get you money for help you with closing costs.
Oh, I'm with you. I just got it. The light bulb just went off in my head. So most of us are like, all right, man, this looks good. I like it. They like it. Everybody likes it. Let's get the inspectors through here. And man, I hope they don't find something that blows this thing up, right? I'm oversimplifying, but that's what we think. Brendan thinks and frames it as, well, we're going to get our inspectors in here and they're going to find something. And that's great because that's an opportunity for us. There's a huge difference there, you guys. A huge difference, right? I want them to find something. If they don't find something, I'll be disappointed because our window of opportunity will shrink. Jeez Louise.
No repairs,
Hey,
no money for you.
Jocko says good.
Good. Yeah. Roof leaking? Good.
Good.
Good. Yep.
Hey,
Absolutely.
this is going on to the web, so I'll skip the editorial. But that Citrus Heights listing, I was on the other side of this, but
Yep.
right, but they asked for repairs um, on a sewer issue,
Yep.
and it got the buyers. Like we ended up negotiating it out. We split the difference and closed the deal. So it got the buyers a chunk of change to go towards closing.
Sure. Absolutely. Yep. You're right.
And I think
Even,
that's our job too, is to know our clients, right? And if representing a buyer, if my buyer is a mechanic, a professional tradesman, something blue collar, a DIY expert, a YouTube expert, man, I'm going to tell them like, hey, this house is great because all you have to do is, and then give them a weekend punch list.
yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to get you a credit for the value of those repairs that you can apply to your closing costs.
Bingo.
I like that, Chad. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Michael, give me the one thing you're doing different.
Oh yeah. So, I got the same lady, so are you still gonna like it when we find the rodents? Because there's a tree here, it's like a highway right into the house, so they're still gonna be here too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if your buyer's an environmentalist, this is an opportunity for them to save dozens of animals.
I see. That's all you got to do. You got to turn it around. You got to turn around. This is your opportunity to save lots of animals. Shelby, I don't know if you can talk or if you can type, but if you can, is there anything that you're going to do different when showing based on what we've talked about today?
Yeah, I think, yeah, just trying to have some of a positive spin on the negative and basically like what you guys have all said, saying that there's an opportunity for a credit or something along those lines. But both of my canceled transactions, um, was really hard to figure out because one was a foreclosure sale, so there was
Right.
no like negotiating there, and then the other one, the sellers were so stubborn, so it just didn't work out. But definitely, I like all the things that everybody's saying.
Yeah, for sure. And Shelby brings up a good point. Even if we do the buyer half of it and everything that we're saying 100% right, there is no guarantee that the seller's going to play ball Like they could be absolutely stubborn. They could be absolutely dug in. There's a lot of that out there right now. I'm not discounting that because the seller side of the coin, you know, we talked about the buyer mentality. The seller mentality is that, hey, I'm already selling my house for less than I should. Okay. And so they're a little bit upset. I will add this, and this is kind of anecdotal, but it's real. Okay. The one thing that I do that I really like to toot my horn about with all my sellers is I make them spend all the money on all the inspections right up front. Okay? Right up front. I want to know what's wrong with this house. I want to be able to tell the buyers what's wrong with this house. I want to skip this part. Now, on every single listing that I've done, not every single, but a high percentage of the listings that I've done with that, the buyer still finds something. All right. They bring somebody in that I didn't bring in, or they bring in a different set of eyes and they find something. And we end up playing ball because we want it to be done. So we end up issuing some kind of credit. Side note, whatever the buyer asks for, if the seller gives you 50%, call it a win and move on. All right. That's important. That's really important. Okay. But we end up giving them half of what they asked for. We end up moving on. But to temper that seller, when they get pissed off, and they do every time, to temper that seller, what we can say is, look, we did everything possible to avoid this. Okay? We did everything in our power to avoid this, and you did a great job. It's unfortunate they found it, but it's real. And when we go back, when we don't agree with these people and they escrow cancels and we go back to market, I've got to take that finding with us. All right. So let's get it done now. Okay. So hopefully you have that listing agent on the other side of it, even if the seller is upset, and it'll work out. If you don't, if you've got the listing agent that can't do that, or you've got the seller that is just really dug in and their listing agent can't manage them, yeah, you could still end up with a cancellation. That's the reality of it. Okay. That's the reality of it. Okay. So end of the day, to wrap up, it's 50. I want to get you out of here. I think that the overwhelming issue is they're looking for certainty and they're never going to find it. And the only way that things stay together and they choose to close anyways, which we want them to do because it's good for them, is if we do our job and we start defining what things really are and we start reassuring and bringing a dose of reality into what those inspection findings are versus this big giant pile of the house is broken. Okay? We do that, we're going to be more successful. We don't do that, we're going to keep going in circles. That's my take on the whole deal. All right, I don't want to keep you over time. So, anybody got anything to add, anything to say, any questions? Think I'm crazy? Now's the time.
I'd like to add also too that don't forget last ditch effort. This is your very last thing you should do. You throw your own money at it if you have to. You say, "Hey, I will help with the cost of repairs." First, you try to get the listing agent to split it with you. Hey, let's split this. We're right here. Let's split it with me. They won't do it. Throw your own money at it within reason, of course, right? One of my mentors used to tell me, do you want to, contribute and give them some of your commission, or do you want to stick them back in the car and show them 12 more houses? I go, no, take the money. Let's get this done.
Freaking lippy.
Tom Leonard.
Oh, yeah, yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah. No. Yeah, no,
That's a fantastic, that's really good advice too on both ends. Last ditch effort. Don't do it unless you have to, but do not be afraid to do it to make a deal happen.
Yeah. I'm glad you guys brought that up because I didn't. And if you heard some of me and Brendan's conversations around that subject, you'd probably know why. But also, I agree completely. If because it's usually not a ton of money that you're talking about anyways when you get right down to it. It's not a bunch, okay? And so there is always that. And it really goes a long ways as far as your client is concerned, and it says a lot about you. When you dig into your own pocket, make sure that they know that that's what you're doing because you want to close it for them. And that goes a long ways. They will tell everybody that they know, you know, we almost didn't get this house, but Brendan pulled $1,500 out of his commission in order to bridge the gap that we had. And, we think he's an amazing guy. So don't, again, it's a last ditch effort. You earn that money. Okay. I don't want you to give that money away. And ultimately, you have to make the call. That's not something we'll ever tell you to do. But if you think it makes sense and you're ready to do that, do it. You bet.
Don't do it unless you have to.
Yeah. 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 We will also never yell at you for that. Okay. Some agents are like, well, if I do that, my broker's going to be pissed. No, no, he's not. He's not. Uh, there's parameters around everything. Don't call me and be like, hey, I just gave up $10,000 of my commission on a $15,000 commission because I don't want to show them 12 more houses. I don't think that's a good idea. Okay. But if you call me and say, hey, I'm looking at losing $1,000 of commission money because that's how far apart we are. And if I do this, the deal closes. And if I don't, we're back to ground zero. I'm going to tell you to give up the money. Okay. Absolutely going to tell you to do that. Thanks for bringing up that point. All right. Anything else? It's 54. Okay. Hang in there, guys. You're doing great. All right. For those of you that are getting stomped on with cancellations, keep going and use this stuff. If you need me, call me. If you need Brendan, call Brendan. We're here to help you. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Have a great afternoon.